Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the SCEA Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. We call ourselves Cool, and I want to welcome you to tonight's live stream. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at the SCEA's legislative agenda, and we have several guests that we're going to bring on to talk about that agenda. And before we do that, just want to remind you that you can find all of our live streams right here on this website, cool.us at CEWL.us. And of course, we would not be here without the support of the South Carolina Education Association. And if you are interested in joining that organization, you can go to jointhescea.org. We are the state affiliate of the National Education Association, which is the largest labor union in the country, with over 3 million educators as a part of our union. And when you join the SCEA, you're not only joining our state association, but you're joining NEA and your local association. We're the only education advocacy organization in South Carolina that gives you that 3-tiered membership. Well, as I said, tonight, we're going to be talking about the upcoming legislative session and what our priorities are for the South Carolina Education Association based upon some feedback we got from our members. And the first folks we want to bring on are folks from Capital Consultants who do a lot of work for us. Please welcome Katie Lechner and Richard Davis. How are you tonight?
Great. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Doing well. Thank you for what you do on behalf of educators in South Carolina. If you could, first of all, just sort of introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your background, how you got into this work, and then we can talk about what you do on behalf of our members.
Okay, great. Well,
Katie, you wanna go first?
sure. So good evening. My name's Katie. I work for Capital Consultants, Lobbyist Government Affairs Associate. I have been here with the firm for about 3 years. So this is my third legislative session with the South Carolina Education Association, primarily bill monitoring, bill tracking, research, and boots on the ground advocacy. So happy to be here.
Thank you.
And thank you, Todd. And I'm Richard Davis. I'm the founder of Capital Consultants, and I've been around a little longer than Katie. I know we look about the same age, but we have. I've been lobbying for 35 years, and we actually the largest lobbying firm in the state, and we've been helping the South Carolina Education Association for many, many years. And it's a great organization. First, let me compliment the SCEA, its president, Dina Cruz, and Caleb, and Mary Rita, and Tom Hudson. They're just a great bunch of people to work with, and I'll tell you, they're very dedicated to the cause. They are education specialists, and it's a delight for us to be able to work with them. But what we do is, and Katie will talk about what she specifically does, but our goal and our responsibility to the SCEA is to look at every piece of legislation. This year, we will read somewhere around 2,000 bills and determine which one of those might impact the SCEA and education in general, not just the SCEA, but all of our affiliates and friends. And so identify those bills, and Katie will talk about what she does with that. And then the leadership of the SCEA determines whether we want to support that bill, try to amend the bill, defeat the bill, or whatever. All of the direction we take is given to us from the SCEA leadership, the people I just mentioned. So we will have maybe 2,000 bills in a session, and believe it or not, only about 500 of those become law. But many pieces of legislation do not pass for various reasons. We operate in what we call a supermajority state. That we have a Republican governor, a Republican lieutenant governor, a Republican majority in the House, and a Republican majority in the Senate. And we call that a supermajority. That's a little unusual. In the past, we at least have one Democratic body as the majority, but for several years we haven't had that. And what that simply means is Republicans control the agenda. Any majority party always controls the agenda, so that's not unusual. But it's important that we would ask you. It's important, to hear from you. It's important to express your views to the SCEA, which ultimately comes to us, and it's important to get to know your legislator. One of the most important things anybody on this call that's listening can do is establish a relationship back home with their senator and their House member. Nothing works better for success in the educational arena than hearing from constituents. So that's very, very important as we go through that. There are things that work and things that don't work. I'm not going to take a lot of time talking about that, but one thing, for instance, that does not work well is petitions. That's called pressure stuff, and petitions don't work as well. But direct contact with legislators, emails to legislators, and discussing your points of view with legislators delight to the success CEA enjoys and will enjoy again this year. The team is over there. Caleb's there every day. Over there, in and out. We attend meetings and voice opinions and positions on every bill that could impact the education community, particularly the SCEA. So we're around. We work, as I said, we testify in committee, subcommittee. We work to advance a bill. We work to defeat a bill. And we have a pretty good success rate in the legislature in defeating those bills that our position does not support. So, Katie, I'll stop there, and you can tell them what you do all the work and what you send everybody.
Sure. So, as Richard said, we track and monitor every piece of legislation that's read across the desk. So, every year there's a couple thousand that are introduced. Many aren't of any interest to the SCEA. So, my job is to read every bill, flag it if I think it's of interest to the association, and summarize it and send those summaries out to the team at SCEA. So those could be bills on a range of topics that have to do with education, everything from teacher pay, discipline, to free school meals for students, to property taxes. So there is a wide range of subject matter to cover, but we try to flag those bills for you and get those over to the SCEA staff and solicit feedback. The most important thing is for us is to get feedback from the SCEA members to know what you guys care about, what you don't. There's a lot of bills that we know may or may not have a good chance of passing this year, or ones that have legs, so we say. So, we try to kind of guide the team onto what bills to prioritize their time on, and ones that may be getting a hearing and ones that probably won't be getting a hearing, or where we should spend our effort. So we go through every piece of legislation, summarize it, send it out, and there are new bills introduced every week. So we go through all of those bills weekly and send them out typically on Fridays. Also send out a report for upcoming meetings for the upcoming week and meetings that we may need to focus on, we may need to testify at. So we meet weekly with the SCEA team and talk about our approach for that week and our legislative strategy for being at the State House. So that is kind of our technical process for bill monitoring and bill tracking. Along with that, it's important for us to maintain relationships with legislators. We can kind of get the inside scoop on what they're thinking for legislation that may or may not be introduced later on down the line, how we can give our input further on or earlier in the process before a bill is even introduced. In addition to legislation, there's also regulations from the Department of Education that we also want the SCEA to be involved in since they're a major stakeholder. So those are just a few of the things that I do daily and weekly throughout the year.
Thank you both. One question
May
I have.
I add one thing?
Go ahead.
Okay. One thing I forgot, we also meet every Monday, our team and the SCEA team we'd meet every Monday and go over the schedule for the coming week and get input. Caleb and Mary Red and Tom, they do a great job in getting that input. Also, if I may answer, Danielle Gallagher asked a great question. Do you have a basic script or form letter to use when we contact legislators? The reason that's such a great question is Danielle, we don't want to use form letters because they all will appear the same, and legislators know that. What we do is Katie will send out the basic talking points, and we would ask you to put those talking points in your own letter the way you would like to write it. So personal letters using our talking points work much, much better and much more effective than what we call form letters. So you asked the question the correct way. Great, Danielle. Thank you for it.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. My question to both of you is, Richard, you mentioned the supermajority that exists at the state house and across South Carolina government. How does that make your job as a lobbyist for the SCEA more challenging, and what are some ways that educators can support the efforts that you're putting forth to support public education beyond just the letters and the calls? What are some other strategies that you might think would be supportive?
Making sure that you work both sides of the aisle. Establish friendships with both Republican and Democratic legislators, and try to be as balanced as you can. People ask us all the time, "Are you a Republican or a Democrat?" And we say we're Republicans because we need everybody's vote. And it's just a matter of sitting down and talking to legislators, and we try to stay focused on the issues, not partisan politics. And we've been pretty good at that. I think legislators appreciate hearing the association's position, that we articulate why that's our position, and we've been fairly successful in the supermajority not affecting us as far as wanting to stop our legislation or pass our legislation. As long as we're fair and honest and tell both sides of the story, we can work in a nonpartisan way, which we try to do. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah. Okay, Kate, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. In addition to calling and emailing when you need something, it's also important to establish those relationships before you need something, before there's an ask. So if you haven't met your legislator yet, I would suggest giving them a call. Most of them have their business and their personal phone numbers on their website. They want to hear from their constituents. That's the most important thing, or should be the most important thing to them. So give them a call. Say you want to meet with them. You don't have a specific ask, but you just want to develop a relationship with them. And later on down the line, if there is an ask, that will only be strengthened by your existing relationship. So I would say, don't be hesitant to reach out to them. You might be nervous, but they really do look forward to hearing from their constituents. That's their job.
Well, thanks to both of you for the work that you do on a daily basis to support public education, to support the agenda of the South Carolina Education Association. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we pivot over to Caleb and Kat?
Just what Katie said, get to know your legislator. If you don't know who they are, and believe it or not, only about 30% of constituents know who their legislators are, particularly House members and Senate members to some degree. But you can always call the SCEA office, and we can always tell you who your legislators are, and we're happy to do that. But to Katie's point, establish a personal relationship with them will go a long, long way.
Thank you. All right. Well, thanks. Katie, any final words?
Just echo Richard's sentiments, and then always, if there's any questions about, legislation, if you're hearing something in the news about a bill, always reach out to the SCEA. We can kind of give you more of the inside baseball on the legislative matters and our priorities at the State House. So just always here as a resource.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard and Katie. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you for having us.
All right, everybody. That was Katie Lechner and Richard Davis of Capital Consultants. Next up, we have our public affairs specialist, Caleb Mickler, and the Berkeley Education Association president, Kat Lowe. They're going to be talking to us tonight about our legislative agenda at the SCEA and how it's been informed by a survey that we conducted with our members. Before we get started, if you'd both like to introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Hey, I'm Kat Lowe. I am a 20-year teacher. I teach science in Berkeley County, and I'm the Berkeley County Education Association president, and I'm the chair of the legislative committee here for the SCEA.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Caleb Mickler. I do the government affairs as well as the communications for the SCEA, and a lot of the work that I as well as Marietta Watson, and in partnership with our executive director, Tom Hudson, and the SCA president, Dina Cruz. A lot of it is ran from legislatively by what Kat, as well as the other legislative affairs committee does, since we are an entity, an association that is member-led and driven by educators across the whole state of South Carolina in and out the classroom. We try and honor several dockets on the legislative agenda to push that within the 2 and frankly 4-year cycle of each legislative session. So glad to discuss some of it.
Thank you both. I wanted to give you an opportunity. You heard what Katie and Richard spoke about, that there's a couple of thousand bills and we can't focus on all of them. So how do we determine what the SCEA is going to focus on, and then also what are we going to be focusing on in this particular legislative agenda?
Yeah.
So
Caleb, you want to go ahead?
I was going to briefly just say that when it comes with that, what's great from the SCA when we have a partner like Capital Consultants, who has definitely been longstanding in the State House, they do provide that great insight and to inform us of some things that may have legs or may just be legislation that frankly some elected officials are trying to get their name out in their local media market. So with that all being said, of course, a lot of the bills tied to, of course, public education when it comes to certifications, or even when it addresses stuff tied to students, even besides the K-12 setting, but in our colleges, universities, our community school colleges and trade schools, that's definitely front of mind for us. And definitely we monitor if, say, the chair of each respective education committee has their name tied to a bill, because that definitely means there's going to be some traction, or folks who are in respective majority or even minority leadership on even bipartisan bills. That's how we kind of focus on that. And so, yeah.
Kat?
Yeah, a lot of what Caleb said. I think the thing I think about is, especially in pre-filing, is to make sure that you don't let panic lead you to worry about bills that are probably not going to go very far based on either who wrote them or how many times it comes up. I think it's really good to recognize that you have so much energy, and to focus on bills that the education chairs are looking at. Those are going to be the folks that give time to talk about the actual bills that have been written and filed. Another nice thing is if you kind of walk yourself through the SCEA's agenda, and Caleb will probably talk about this, but we run a survey. Our legislative committee, made up of SCEA members, talk about what we want our focuses and goals to be for us. And then it's kind of like a synergism of people that we've been talking to, those representatives or senators that are interested in certain bills. And so it really just takes a lot of talking through to see what is going to be happening as we move forward. So there are a couple of really interesting bills out there, and I think the ones that are worth talking about are the ones that are worth lifting up, as opposed to looking at every bill and being like, oh no, and then put lots of energy behind the bills you don't want, when there are lots of bills out there that we should be excited about and put our efforts towards pushing in the same direction to help these representatives and senators get the bills across the finish line.
And what would those bills be this year that we're looking at closely?
You know, I'll just take one. I'm sure Caleb's got a good list of them, but one that seems to be getting a lot of traction right now is the one from Neil Collins that talks about taking the phrase on duties as assigned on our contracts. You know, a lot of our issues of, you know, how we end up working all these extra hours that, you know, maybe we got voluntold to do something has to do with just that phrasing in the contract. And so when we look at bills like that, you know, it reflects some of the things that we have on our legislative agenda about contracts. So it kind of builds a bridge of conversation. You can see it moving a little bit on social media where, you know, other teachers and other forums are also interested in it. So I would say that that's probably a bill that we'll keep our eye on and hopefully move forward, because as we get to change our contract for the better, we get a better contract, we get a better deal, and that's better for teachers in their workplace.
Absolutely. It seems like that is, we know we've talked about that a lot. And
Mhm.
Steve Newsom wrote an article about that on our cool website if you'd like to read it recently. And just that loophole that allows districts to exploit their faculty to do all this extra work that they don't get paid for. And I think most educators within certain boundaries don't mind giving a little extra, volunteering some of their time. But when you're consistently asked to work evenings or weekends and you're not compensated either with comp time or some type of monetary compensation, it's a form of exploitation, and it's something that it's a sort of this loose end that needs to be tightened up so that it's more explicit in the contract what's expected of educators.
Yeah, Steve's an excellent writer. You know, Steve and I talk about the contracts all the time. And I would just say that anything that we're seeing comes after years and years of conversation. And I guess that's why I think the legislative agenda is so important for us, because it allows a platform for us to, as teachers, members, to be able to talk to each other about where we want to see things, not next year or 2 years, but really like 4, 5, 10, you know, like years and years down the line, because as these bills come up, we want to be able to put our efforts towards the bills we want to get, again, past the finish line. And so, you know, this, you know, duties as assigned commentary has been something that people have been talking about for a good bit. And it's just really great to see, you know, pen on paper and a bill come to the forefront. So it is a process for a lot of different people. And I think if people take the approach that it's not like this gotcha moment, like, oh no, this is a new bill. It's like a lot of this stuff has been here for a while, and we need to have the conversations that happen through these processes of putting the agenda together and talking to legislators to get forward, again, the things that we want to see done.
Yeah, thank you. Caleb?
Yeah, I definitely want to reiterate what Kat said. It does. It can be very frustrating for educators because there's a process to a lot of the bills that get enacted. It may take, you know, a couple of years. I vividly recall with the very substantial Educator Assistance Act, House Bill 3196, that took several conversations, and definitely it was important with Kat and other members of our legislative committee, as well as those educators who were able to participate in our lobby days, which, sidebar, we have several coming up on February 18th, February 25th, and March 25th. We'll talk more about that later on, but do want to highlight that because those lobby days are very vital, because it's front hand for those elected officials to meet educators from their respective districts, as well as to hear like what it is like as a public school employee in and out the classroom. So definitely the more voices from educators across the Palmetto State, the better, because it'll just raise, you know, the awareness of the need to make things better for educators.
I appreciate that you did this survey. You conducted a survey over the past, in the, I think, summer and fall, with our members, and that's something that I think really differentiates the SCEA, is that we are very much member led, and we're driven by putting our ear to the ground and hearing from our members about what's important to them, or some of the key findings from this report, and how does that sort of shape the way the SCEA looks at this upcoming legislative session.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it definitely tied with when it came to investing or to focus our efforts when it came to school safety. Sometimes be that investing in student and educator wellness, as well as some early remediations when it came to childhood literacy and other efforts like that. As well as we have seen some things, say like even some districts allegedly weren't still honoring unencumbered time, or just some bills that were implemented or passed, but still not being honored per se. So when that came, or when we saw those that data that was sent back to us, we would one try to remediate head first with those districts or with administration, what have you, or even corresponding with those respective local county education affiliates. Since the SCA, we have local, state, and national. So just working with our local affiliates in the district to try and resolve that. But if not, sometimes having to reach out to respective county legislative delegations who are there at the State House. And that's how definitely when it came to the respondents, which we had with Merida, myself, and other folks, trying to filtrate all that, then send it to Kat and the other team when we have a committee day, so they can really streamline it to what we can definitely accomplish within a certain time frame, and then have it approved during the summer during representative assembly. So I have my marching orders as well as Capitol Consultants for what to pursue. So I think definitely this current cycle on our legislative agenda, it recognizes the dignity of work for all our educators in and out the classroom, even those education support professionals, our ESPs as we call them, since we have seen in our General Assembly a strong push, a great push to increase starting teacher salary at $50,000. Yet for many districts, our ESPs are at the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour. And even if that ESP has been at that respective district for X amount of years, it varies on how to honor their work. So we are excited to see that there is a bill out there, 3583, which addresses public school support staff compensation. So be on the lookout for that, especially our ESPs, on how we can raise awareness for that bill that's currently held up in House Ways and Means. Additionally, we heard from our educators, the top thing was student behavior or concerns and how to produce a safe and supportive and enriching learning environment. So we do have a bill that we're in the beginning phases of that addresses that. And we've had very fruitful conversations with those key lawmakers from both the Senate and the House, as well as partnering groups who we do interact with to make sure that all the educational groups, be it even the school board, or be it the school administrators, or other education aligned advocacy groups, are all in lockstep for the same goal, because that definitely showcases to our lawmakers like, oh man, this is a unified front for this bill tied to education. I cannot ignore it. So that's definitely something we stress, to have lots of coalition partners in this fight. And I'll just leave it at there. If Kat, you have something to add.
Thank you, Caleb. Kat, before you jump in, Kat, you are a strong and vocal local leader as the president of the Berkeley County Education Association. Can you feel free to piggyback on what Caleb said, but I'd like you to also talk about the importance of building strong local structures in terms of how we organize, why that piece is so important, and that if we're just looking at this from a state perspective and not building grassroots local affiliate sort of associations, how we're sort of dropping the ball there,
Yeah.
and for those who maybe are in a community and maybe their local isn't very strong, how can they sort of jumpstart that and get that going?
So, I mean, first of all, just Caleb and Mary Rita have really like hit this out of the park. They are in subcommittee meetings. They are using our legislative agenda. I mean, it is like anything else. When we all say the same things over and over, that's how we get heard, So it is just so important that we're all talking to each other so that we're all using, not even in an idea of like same messaging, but like really understanding that by us moving forward, especially with the behavior work that they've been doing. I'm really excited to see these bills come out of the subcommittee. They really are going to reflect some sincere asks from our teachers for help in behavior and expectations for good outcomes. But that's what this really comes down to. A real common misconception I think people think is that the conversations that we're having with members is somehow politicized, and it really isn't. We're talking about what it takes to have, a great classroom and a great school. And that really doesn't have that much to do with the external politics of the day to day. And so what I would say is in Berkeley, especially, we've had a lot of things happen to us. And I think the really great thing that we have decided is that we're just going to focus on us and really talk to each other about how things impact us. I think a really good example was when we had discus pulled. We are the only district that had discus taken away. That was our virtual library. It was taken away in the middle of the day. And, we have built a communication system amongst our members in Berkeley that not only did we know within an hour of it being pulled, like, we had a pretty good narrative and understanding of what had happened. And by doing that, and by building relationships with organizations that could help us, we were able to reach out to the ACLU, who was then able to FOIA the district so that we could find out what was going on. And so, it really matters that you take into consideration the problems that you're trying to solve. I think of politics as like a lens of where you start seeing things through. You can have people that have a conservative thought process or, an independent thought process, not really an affiliation, right? Or progressive. And you get them around the same table and they talk about how a bus schedule is going to work, how we're going to get the curriculum that we're going to need, what the testing is going to look like. And, we're all talking about the same stuff almost immediately. And so it really is a focus on and how we can solve those things with the resources that we already have. And we've made some significant progress on that front. I do think it's important for everyone to recognize, like, these things aren't games. We're not trying to see who's right or who's wrong. We're just trying to make things better. And so long as we kind of keep on that path of discussion, I just see the SCEA and our local BCEA only getting stronger because our membership is brought together with common goals and differing ideas that can get us there. And I think of those things as a strength. So, when we kind of take a look at the legislative agenda, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things for us to be talking about, hopeful things that we should be talking about as we're moving forward here. And so, I just see all these developments and connections that we're making with each other. And even this conversation tonight moves the ball even farther because, the people that we're talking to hopefully think, that they too want to be a part of some good outcomes. And the way you do it is you sit down, you look at this legislative agenda, you talk to your representatives as to what you think moves the ball forward for us. So everybody carrying water. It's like that old saying, what is it? Many hands make less work. That's what we need. Many hands make less work.
And this is, so, you heard Richard and Katie talk about the importance of educators reaching out to their representatives, which I think is an important part. But the reason why the SCEA exists is so that people aren't doing that in silos, that they're actually coming together to talk together so that the messaging makes sense and so that we're all working towards some common goals. And so that you don't feel alone in doing that, that you feel like there's strength in numbers and strength in our voice when there's more of us together. Can you talk, both of you talk a little bit about the importance of maybe an educator is watching and they're not a member of the SCEA and they're thinking, why would I pay dues to that organization, and what good is that going to do me being a member, and what does that have to do with my day-to-day uh, classroom environment and my school's environment for my students? Like, how's that going to benefit them?
So, before I was a part of the SCEA, I had just kind of started advocacy. My personal passion is our contracts, and I can remember Sherry East, our prior president, coming and sitting down and saying, like, this sounds like this is important to you. Like, do you really want to make a difference? We can give you the tools to try and make that difference. And so, for me, joining the SCEA meant a couple of different things. First of all, it plugged me into a community of people that want to see change, that want to be a part of, coming up with solutions on problems. And so that's an important part of it. And I think that in the end, people don't want to make mistakes in this type of forum. Like, a common thing now here from people is like, oh, what if I call my legislator and like I say something and that makes them mad, or like I didn't get the thing done that I wanted to. Well, when you are in a silo and you're by yourself, you have a hard time seeing if that phone call really mattered. But we know that phone call mattered because we all work together, and you talk to your, all of your for Berkeley County, and it's like, oh, did you send your email? Did you talk to so and so? Like, it's a team. It makes an immediate team for you to be able to, work with and, work ideas up against. And like, when you do make a mistake, you look at your colleagues and they are like, well, we'd rather you make your mistake in doing. And I would say that regardless, I really do think sometimes we make a thing about whether or not you're going to become active or not. And I do worry sometimes that people think that they're going to make a mistake. And I think using your voice is never a mistake. As you do it more and you do it with, like with people around you that are supportive, you're going to feel more confident in that voice that you're using. And you'll recognize that your message is going to come through. And so, I really, whenever I hear everyone say, like, call your legislator, I just remember the first time I did it and how nervous I was and how I was like, well, how did that make a difference? I don't see any difference. But I'll tell you, being a part of the SCEA and making these phone calls and doing the legislative day and being a part of the committee, like, you really do see the motion that's happening here, the change that's happening. And that's important. It keeps you motivated.
Thank you, Kat. Caleb, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, definitely using your voice is very important. It's definitely interesting with me being at the State House a lot during this cycle from January up until May, or just hearing some of the speeches or just in the committee and subcommittee hearings, that a lot of the elected officials don't know or aren't familiar with the subject matter that they are discussing, especially when it comes to educators and what all the demands there are. So as Kat indicated, just be genuine, just let them know, like, show your contract, or this is what I have to do. Or I think that's how unencumbered time came to be implemented, because it was like, as an educator, do not have that right now. And the other thing I want to raise awareness is very fascinating how when you look at other professional trades or what have you, be it engineers, lawyers, doctors, it's that educators group, the density wise of membership are people who are part of their respective association group is not the same. And I always thought that was fascinating, because educators it's the profession that makes all the other professions possible. So I think by that, when educators do come together and raise their voice or let it be heard and known like those other respective professional associations, that makes our elected officials realize like, oh, there's quite a significant portion and quite a significant portion that makes it be loud and address their concerns. Since I think educators definitely are people who are definitely more calmer, so to speak, compared to other folks. So I think that is a good thing and sometimes a bad thing, because they don't hear a lot of times from educators like, well, I guess this is fine, the policy we're trying to implement or the regulation we're trying to slide in, because we haven't really heard that much from educators across the state, as opposed to when we slip something and this other group calls us about. So that's why definitely when we do reach out, or even if you're not even a member, if you are an educator, we love to hear your concerns and just try and figure out ways to resolve whatever that is, and then showcase how the work that the SCA does. If you want to join, then great. But if we are able to help you, still great, because at the end of the day, we are here to do what's best for educators across our great Palmetto State.
Thank you, Kev. Before we sign off tonight, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about to make sure folks knew about the upcoming legislative session and sort of what should be on their radar and how they can help the SCEA achieve its goals?
For the most part, what is happening, what we're definitely probably seeing in our lower chamber, which is the South Carolina House of Representatives, they are at an upcoming election cycle. So there is some bills that may be quite alarming, or does what may be viewed as somewhat detrimental towards educators, or stuff that may impede upon conducive learning environments or what have you. Don't be too alarmed, in the sense that, again, a lot of times they're doing this to, one, help their reelection bids, or as well as just trying to get their name out there. A lot of times those bills can be held up in the Senate. And again, those bills are at a 2-year cycle. So there's currently some bills happening right now in the South Carolina House of Representatives. They're back in recess at 6:45, addressing some bills tied to bathroom and changing regulations and monitoring, and how to seek any, for those folks accused or those parents or students who may feel concerned or what have you, seek some legal retribution or what have you. But again, just don't be too alarmed. But we do try and just let you know all the education bills that are out there, and as well as how you can let your position, whether in favor or not in favor of that, be known, and why. And then definitely you can let that be known during our lobby days, which are, the first one is coming February 18th. And again, you can join whichever one works for your schedule, since we're having 3 this year. So the first one is February 18th, then that next Wednesday, February 25th, while the last one will be geared towards more of our retirees on March 25th. So would love to have any educator present to speak on behalf of your fellow colleagues and about what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. Kat, anything else that you wanted to share?
Yeah, just two things. One, if you do pick up the phone or you see one of these bills, let's say you see one of these bills and it's upsetting you, go look at whose name is on the bill. And when you make your call to either senator or rep, depending on where the bill is sitting, you can actually make an ask. Like, you can say that you're not happy with the bill. And if your representative or your senator's name is on the bill, you ask them to take their name off the bill. And that's how that's a real ask. If you see a bill that you really, really think is good, then ask them to put their name on the bill. It's not just a simple, like, I like the bill or I don't like the bill, or this is what I like about it or this is what I don't like about it. When you see a lot of names on a bill, that's like a way to know that those people are going to vote for this bill. Like they are going to go through the exercise of supporting this bill as it moves out to the floor. And so it's valuable to know that little piece of information, because when they get asked that, whenever I talk to legislators, they kind of like perk up, like, oh, you know how this works. So that would be one thing I would kind of share as an idea. If you're seeing that and the bill is upsetting, tell them to take it off. And if it is something you want, ask them to put their name on it. The other thing I would say is, as I always do, I just want to remind everyone that you don't have to sign your contract until May 10th. And then we take pretty seriously the idea that we want a good contract. And the first task of a good contract is to read your contract and know your contract. We anticipate that there are going to be some changes in that contract due to the Educators Assistance Act. And we want to make sure every district is doing their due diligence and what they're supposed to do and make that contract better for us. So I know that we'll be making some plans. I know the Berkeley County and the Low Country area, we do a signing day where we all wait until May 10th and sign our contracts together as a sign of solidarity and a statement of hope that in time to come, we'll have even better contracts to be signing. So really excited about it.
All right. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Caleb, for all that you're doing to support public educators and the daily fight that you put up to just kind of bring some common sense to the legislative process. And hopefully folks will listen to your wisdom tonight. And thanks again, and appreciate your time tonight.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Caleb Mickler and Kat Lowe. Thanks to them. Thanks also to Katie Lechner and to Richard Davis of Capital Consultants. I do want to just remind you of a couple of things Caleb mentioned. One is the Lobby Day. If you're interested in learning more, you go to the SCEA's website, the scea.org/lobbydayinfo. This is your opportunity to look at the dates that are available when you could possibly go to Columbia and join us for Lobby Day. That information is available on our website. And as always, we want to keep our members and the public up to date about our legislative agenda. And you can do that on our website as well, at the scea.org/legagenda, LEGAGENDA. Just head on over there and you can learn more about the bills that we're monitoring and our perspective on them. And we want to hear from you too. So if you're a member of the SCEA, we want to hear what you think about the various bills coming up, and feel free to comment on this live stream and let us know what you're thinking and what's on your radar this year. And of course, we are always listening. We're doing surveys, making sure that our members' interests are represented. And if you're interested in being a member, to join the chorus of public education advocates, you can do that right here at jointhescea.org. That is the way you can directly join our association. Not only are you joining the SCEA, though, you're joining the National Education Association, a whole bunch of great benefits that the NEA provides its members, because when you have over 3 million members, like AARP or any other large group, you can give a lot of discounts. And like we have travel benefits, we have insurance benefits, credit card benefits. There's all kinds of benefits. In fact, my credit card benefit through NEA alone pretty much pays for my dues. And that's just one of the many benefits NEA provides. But more than that, because it's not just about this transactional relationship where we're trying to take your money and give you a credit card or a travel discount. We really want you to join a movement. Join the movement to protect and preserve public education, because we all know that it's under attack from a variety of different angles. We need to protect public education for future generations, and we need to take care of those who are taking care of our students. We need to make sure that educators are paid well, that they have great working conditions, that they're not exploited through things like other duties as assigned, that our support professionals are also paid a living wage where they can have that one job and not feel like they have to have a second or third job just to make ends meet. They deserve to be paid and respected as well. And that's the great thing about the SCEA. One of the great things is that we're not just a member, we're not just an organization. for classroom teachers, we are an organization that represents also bus drivers and cafeteria workers and front office staff and administrators. If you work in a public school in South Carolina, you can be a member of the SCEA, and you can join right here at jointhescea.org. So, a couple of other things we have coming up. First of all, if you don't know about COOL, that's our Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. You can go to cool.us, learn more about us there. And we do have a couple of things coming up that we would like to share with you. One is next Wednesday, we're going to have a conversation, same time, 6 o'clock, Wednesday, February 4th, with Matthew Bowerman. He is one of the country's leading experts on trauma sensitive spaces. He's an administrator, and he's written for Edutopia and other education platforms. This should be a wonderful conversation. We'd love for you to join us and learn more about how you can create trauma sensitive spaces in your school, in your classroom. And of course, we love to share this information, which is our COOL coaching program. This is complimentary online support for induction teachers. When we say induction teacher, we mean teachers in the first 5 years of their career. They can log on at cool.us/coaching anytime between 6 and 8 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday night. When they log in, they will get put into a breakout room with either Angie Brush, Stephanie Johnson, or Dr. Marcella Weinsnyder. Marcella is the person who created this coaching program. You get free, unfiltered, unbiased support. You can ask questions, you can vent, you can look for resources, whatever you need as an induction teacher. You can go to these coaches, and they're going to provide you tailored, specific support to your situation. And I can't recommend this enough. So please make sure, if you're not an induction teacher, but you know someone in your building who's struggling. In fact, I just talked to somebody yesterday who was struggling. He's in his first year. And I made sure he knows about COOL coaching because it's free. And you do not need to be a member of the SCEA. But I think when you join COOL coaching, you'll realize you'll start to develop this relationship with the SCEA and realize what a wonderful organization it is to be a part of. The last thing I wanted to mention was the work that Alex Del Castillo is doing. He leads our COOL yoga program, and he does a lot of stuff over on TikTok and Instagram. And we, Facebook is like for folks like me and the, Gen X folks and older. We know that younger folks are often on Instagram or TikTok. And so the SCEA has a presence on Instagram. And if you go over to Instagram and search for the SCEA, connect with us there. And you can also connect with us on TikTok at tiktok.com/@the-SCEA. And that's where you're going to see a lot of Alex's work. You'll see clips from live streams that we do as well. For example, we did interviews with Sylvia Wright and with Lisa Ellis, who are candidates for South Carolina Superintendent of Education. And there are clips from those interviews where these are long form live streams. So we take those long forms and we cut down into some highlights from these long form pieces. So you'll find those there as well. But Alex is doing some wonderful work, and just want to make sure we highlight that. Once again, you can join us at jointhescea.org. You can also, if you prefer, text the word join to 48744. So just dial up on your in your text messaging app 48744 and just text the word join, and you can join from there. So once again, thanks so much to all of our guests tonight from Capital Consultants, Katie Lechner and Richard Davis, and from Berkeley County Education Association, Kat Lowe, and of course the wonderful and talented Caleb Mickler from the SCEA, who does our governmental affairs and our communications work. Thanks to Caleb for helping us organize this live stream tonight. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday at 6 o'clock for a conversation about trauma-sensitive spaces. Until then, we hope you stay safe, stay warm, and continue to fight for our public schools. Thanks so much, everybody.
Together we learn, together we grow, together we heal, together we flow. Be cool, every teacher, every school. Be cool, every teacher, every school. Be cool, every teacher, every school.